When a millionaire CEO mocked her, she revealed an amazing secret that changed everything forever. Emma Johnson's heart raced as her friends spoke excitedly about the upcoming corporate gala. "You'll look stunning in that dress," one of them squealed, her eyes shining with envy for the life of glitz and glamour that seemed so far removed from Emma's reality. Emma forced a smile, but inside, she felt a deep sense of disbelief. A waitress from Maplewood rubbing elbows with the wealthy elite? How could she possibly belong among them, particularly with someone like Mark Hayes in attendance? The millionaire CEO with an icy demeanor, the last kind of person she wanted to encounter. The evening of the gala arrived, and whereas her kids waited with sleepy eyes at home, Emma stepped into the venue's shimmering lights. The opulence cut sharply against her modest upbringing. She felt the weight of her role as a mother pressing down on her as she navigated the sea of laughter and clinking champagne glasses, the sheer wealth surrounding her suffocating. Who was she trying to impress? Would anyone even notice her presence? Yet, for her children, she had to keep her chin up, stay visible, stay strong. As the evening wore on, Emma felt increasingly out of place, the air thick with an arrogance that boiled her discomfort. Then came the moment of confrontation. With trembling lips, she voiced the struggles of working-class families, the tireless grind to make ends meet while the wealthy danced around her. Yet her words fell flat. Mark Hayes's laugh rang out like a gunshot, drenching her resolve in cold water. He waved her off, and the crowd's laughter echoed back at her, deepening her embarrassment. The shame sliced through her like a knife, feeding her inner fire, a determination solidifying into something potent. At home, the stillness of the night enveloped her. With her children asleep, she rummaged through family boxes, searching for remnants of her past. Amid dust and disarray, she stumbled upon her grandfather's designs, lost innovations brimming with potential. A brilliant inventor silenced by a society that favored the wealthy. Each blueprint whispered stories of untapped creativity. Emma felt a spark of hope ignite within her. She must honor his legacy. She would rise above, not just for herself but for her children. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Driven by a newfound purpose, Emma entered a local innovation competition, where she would confront Mark once more. The day approached with a surreal intensity, her heart battling turmoil and anticipation. Would she rise to the occasion, or would the weight of doubt hold her back? As she walked onto the stage that day, the audience's gaze felt like a storm around her, teetering on the brink of something extraordinary. Anxiety constricted her throat, but she swallowed hard, gazing out to meet the eyes of skeptics and supporters alike. Voices whispered, she felt Mark's calculating stare, sizing her up. As the moment approached when she would unveil her vision, her fingers trembled, a storm of possibility brewing within. Would she unlock the secrets of her past and shine with the brilliance that had been so long hidden away? Emma's eyes narrowed, focusing on her purpose. Nothing would silence her this time. The air crackled with tension. A revelation was coming, one that could change everything forever. The stage lights glared down on Emma, illuminating every crevice of her anxiety. The audience, a sea of corporate suits and polished personas, stared back expectantly. But no matter how overwhelming the ocean of judgment appeared, she had already made the decision to dive in. Step by step, she reminded herself of her purpose, a mantra echoing in her mind: honor the legacy. For too long, she had lived in the shadows, but today was different. As she took a deep breath, she recalled her grandfather's forgotten designs, blueprints filled with the kind of ingenuity that could revolutionize daily life. With unwavering determination, she pictured herself explaining the invention that could enhance the lives of everyday families, elevating the mundane to extraordinary. The thought of providing her children a better life surged through her veins with fresh vigor. Imagine, she began, her voice steady despite the tremor of her hands, an appliance that not only simplifies household chores but also teaches kids essential life skills. She paused, gauging the crowd's reactions. Some brows furrowed, while others exchanged glances of intrigue. Perhaps they were caught off guard. They expected the quiet waitress to falter, but instead, she unleashed the full force of her vision. With each word, her confidence grew, fueled by the whispers of her grandfather's unmistakable spirit. She spoke of innovation intertwined with education, a product that could bridge the socio-economic gap she had confronted both as a waitress and as a single mother. The audience shifted slightly, drawn into her narrative. Suddenly, the polished veneer of the gala atmosphere felt more like a canvas awaiting paint, and she was the artist, but then the voice of doubt crept back in. What right did she have to challenge the status quo? Mark Hayes leaned back in his chair, calculating. Emma could feel his eyes lingering on her, brimming with skepticism. This wasn't just about unveiling a product, it was about facing her shame and transcending the mockery she had endured. I know what it's like to struggle. I see it each day in my community, where families hustle just to make ends meet, she pressed on, grounding her presentation in personal experience. We deserve more than crumbs from the table of the wealthy. Her voice resonated with conviction, thrumming like a heartbeat of rebellion. She had dismissed fear and styled it into courage, crystallizing her resolve into every syllable. At the conclusion of her pitch, silence enveloped the room. Emma could see skepticism shifting, expressions softened, murmurs rippling like an undertow. Then, as if breaking free from chains of indifference, applause erupted. Emma's heart soared, a euphoric surge engulfing her. She had made herself visible, transformed vulnerability into power, and it began to feel like she was leading her life's revolution. Yet, even as she soaked in the validation, her eyes flitted back to Mark. The way he leaned forward, brows knitting in concentration, sparked a flicker of fear in her chest. Had he registered any semblance of respect or understanding? His reputation as a hard-nosed CEO lingered like a dark cloud. She knew he would not let this go lightly. Then a smile split across his face. It was satisfied, but not impressed. Emma's stomach dropped as he rose from his seat. The moment felt suspended in time. A storm was brewing, and she would soon find herself at the eye of it. Challenging the established order, are we, Emma? His voice was smooth, and yet there danced an edge of condescension. That's quite daring for someone like you. The room held its breath as Emma stood frozen, her mind racing. This was not just any confrontation, it felt like a trial of her worth, her talent, and her very essence. Would she crumble under the weight of his words, or would she rise to the occasion, delivering a blow of truth that could reframe the relationship between the elite and the everyday worker? The answer was still elusive, hanging like a blade above her head, daring her to act. The air was thick with tension as Emma stared at Mark, the weight of his words pressing down like a lead blanket. His casual demeanor belied the razor-sharp scrutiny behind his eyes. Emma shook off the moment of paralysis, her resolve igniting a fire within. This was her opportunity to turn the tide. Mr. Hayes, with all due respect, she began, her voice ringing out like a clarion call. I'm not here to conform to your expectations. I'm here to disrupt them. The words felt liberating, a declaration of intent. She had spent too long hiding in the shadows, allowing others to dictate her worth. No longer would she let someone else's doubt dictate her reality. Mark chuckled, clearly amused by her defiance. Disruption is a bold claim, Emma. What makes you think your idea is worthy of investment? The audience shifted uneasily, but Emma locked eyes with him, fortifying her spirit. Because I understand the struggle. I live it every day. My invention isn't just another appliance, it's a bridge to a future where children like mine have a fighting chance. It's about empowerment, not profit. With every word, she felt the shakiness of uncertainty subside, replaced by an undercurrent of strength. She could see a flicker of irritation cross Mark's face, but she pressed on. You may see me as someone like me, but I refuse to be defined by your limitations. I can drive change not just for myself but for countless families striving to rise above their circumstances. A shift in the room crackled through the air, a mixture of nerves and excitement. Mark's amusement had waned, replaced by a challenge. And what do you propose, Emma? A whimsical solution to bridge gaps that centuries of institutional barriers have created? The challenge loomed before her, daunting and yet invigorating. Emma took a deep breath, grasping the steady beat of her heart as it pulsed questions back to her. What did she truly believe? How far was she willing to go? I propose a product designed with empathy, one that incorporates educational tools within everyday tasks to secure both knowledge and essential life skills. She gestured passionately. Imagine children not just completing chores, but learning budgeting from the family meal prep, or gaining scientific understanding through gardening projects. This isn't whimsical, this is necessary. She became aware of various expressions in the audience, a mix of intrigue, disbelief, and most importantly curiosity. Emma knew she had struck a chord. Pursuing this revelation, a merging of practicality and vision, was her true calling. Mark leaned back, now contemplative rather than condescending. And how do you plan to scale this vision? Investors want assurance, Emma. A fire ignited within her. Assurance comes from belief and grit. I have the former in spades, and I've learned the latter through occupation and sacrifice. I'm not simply looking for a check, I'm seeking allies in a mission to reshape our perceptions of value. As she spoke, the breadth of her intention crystallized in her mind. This wasn't just about a product, it was about forging a movement. But even as she poured her heart out, doubt nipped at her heels. What if her ambition fell flat? What if the elite remained indifferent to her plight? Mark's eyes narrowed, sizing her up afresh. Let me be frank, Emma. Convincing investors requires more than passion. It requires a plan. She felt the stakes rise. Here was an opportunity to not only reveal her idea but also her business acumen, a chance to show her worth in the world she once thought she could never belong to. Then help me build it, work with me, she implored, eager determination lacing her voice. Let us develop a roadmap to transform this vision into reality. A flicker of surprise crossed Mark's face. Perhaps he had underestimated her resilience. But whether this moment would break them or bolster her career remained deeply uncertain. The silence weighed heavily, holding promises and fears alike. Emma found herself hanging on the precipice of an unknown future. Had she planted a seed of doubt in Mark, or had she merely set herself up for disappointment? What came next would determine her path. Would she rise to develop the potential of her idea, or would she allow external pressures to tip the balance against her interests? At that moment, the true battle for her future began. The stillness that enveloped the room seemed to echo Emma's unsteady heartbeat as she awaited Mark's response. She felt the weight of the moment, knowing she had committed herself fully. This was more than just an idea, it was a lifeline for families that struggled daily. A producer of solutions rather than a mere consumer of expectations, this identity was crystallizing within her, guiding her thoughts. After an agonizing pause, Mark's brow furrowed as he contemplated her proposition. All right, let us explore the roadmap you envision, he replied, his tone surprisingly serious. But know this, I'll require tangible milestones, completion dates, and metrics of success. Can you deliver on that? Emma nodded vigorously, the edge of her anxiety beginning to dissolve. Absolutely. I'll draft a detailed plan that outlines our objectives, timelines, and how we'll measure impact, she stated, her convictions solidifying with every word. The prospect of crafting a structured approach invigorated her. She could muster the specifics required while still maintaining her vision. With Mark's approval to develop the plan, a sense of agency surged through her. This was the first time she felt genuinely seen and validated in a setting that once intimidated her. The disbelief in the audience had transformed into cautious anticipation, and the sense of empowerment filled her chest. Pushing her forward, she returned to her workspace, a modest clutter of notebooks and prototypes that reflected her tireless journey. Each scribble was a memory of determination and creativity. As she sat down, the urge to procrastinate nipped at her, a familiar adversary closely tied to her history. But now, instead of succumbing to those doubts, she embraced the challenge. She took a deep breath, grounding herself in purpose. Emma divided her resources into key focal areas: product development, marketing strategy, educational alignment, and potential partnerships with community organizations that could help amplify her reach. Her conceptual insights morphed into actionable steps laid out with clear timelines and goals. Hours melted into something palpable as she lost track of time, driven by the urgency of her ambition. As she pinned her plans to a board, she marveled at how each piece of the puzzle could contribute to a broader transformation. This was a far cry from the self-doubt that had once haunted her. She recognized she was no longer the passive participant but an active architect of her destiny. The once overwhelming map of steps began to appear acutely manageable, each action infusing her with renewed clarity. Days passed, during which she labored relentlessly, pouring her energy into finalizing the roadmap. Thoughts of Mark's skepticism drove her, but equally potent was her desire to prove that she belonged here, amidst leaders and innovators. But lurking in the shadows of her mind was an unsettling doubt: would he really respect the foundational work she put in? As she prepared for the meeting to present her roadmap, anxiety flickered within her. Confidence battled with the jagged remnants of uncertainty as she rehearsed her pitch, focusing on the manner in which she would convey not just the milestones, but the heart of the project, a legacy that intertwined empathy with practical change. She entered the conference room, feeling the weight of her aspirations behind her. Mark was there, flanked by various stakeholders, their postures a mix of curiosity and skepticism. Emma took a moment to steady her breathing. This was at the culmination of her efforts and the true challenge to her belief in the potential of her vision. "Thank you for seeing me again," she began, her voice steady yet intimate. "I've developed a roadmap that outlines how we can potentially disrupt traditional learning while supporting families in everyday tasks." As she detailed her goals and methodologies, she caught Mark's gaze, unwavering and focused. However, a hint of skepticism lingered in the air. Those two words of engagement at the edge of his lips could seal her fate. "What happens if this doesn't resonate with investors?" he challenged, a shadow crossing his features. "How will you overcome rejection?" Emma's heart raced with the familiar drum of doubt, but something shifted within her. She realized the truth of her experience. Rejection isn't an end, but a stepping stone. "I've encountered it before, and each time, I only emerged more resilient. The resistance I faced is part of the drive that fuels this vision." The silence was palpable, thick with the tension of realization. Emma sensed she had crossed a threshold, claiming space not just for herself but for every voice that had been overlooked. But would they accept her revelation or dismiss it as mere bravado? As the room remained quiet, anticipation coiled tightly in her stomach. The next moments could either validate her journey or resonate painfully with the echo of skepticism. As Mark's expression shifted, Emma understood that this encounter might become the defining moment of her career. She braced herself for the confrontation that was about to unfold. What new discovery about herself would emerge when she faced the inevitable challenges awaiting her? A tense atmosphere hung in the room as the silence swallowed Emma's words. She sensed the intensity of Mark's gaze, an estimate of his scrutiny morphing into calculated interest. Would he dare to challenge her belief further? Or was this moment merely a prelude to his acceptance? Each figure around the table, including Mark's, seemed suspended in time, as if holding their breath for the next move. "Resilience is admirable," Mark finally said, his voice a blend of skepticism and intrigue. "But investors also need to see traction. You'll face doubt from those who don't know your story. How will you build the credibility for this initiative?" Emma's stomach churned, the question struck at the core of her insecurities. Yet, within that discomfort, a spark ignited. Mark was right, the hardest part often came from those who were unaware of the years spent battling her own limitations. Her journey had shaped her, not as a product of triumph but as a tapestry woven with persistence and grit. "I'll share the story," Emma said with newfound conviction. "Not just mine, but the stories of families who struggle and aspire for change. I'll encapsulate the emotional heart of our initiative. That authenticity can resonate with investors, compelling them to believe in our mission." Mark raised an eyebrow, intrigued yet still cautious. "And what will you do when skepticism arises? How will you position your narrative?" Emma took a deep breath, the words flowing with a rhythmic confidence. "I'll prepare a comprehensive presentation combining data and emotional appeal. This isn't just numbers, it's about real lives impacted by our solutions. The disengaged don't easily comprehend the urgency, but statistics alongside personal stories will carve out a connection." She could feel the energy in the room begin to shift. Mark leaned forward, the air charged with a spark of potential. "All right. How do you plan on testing the viability of your initiative before presenting it to investors?" Every fiber of her being urged her to outline the strategy she had crafted. I'd collaborate with a select group of families, implementing a pilot program for feedback and adjustment. Documenting their experiences and progress before our official launch will create both qualitative and quantitative data to support our pitch. As she spoke, she caught glimpses of nods from the stakeholders, a subtle but noticeable change in their posture. The stakes were high, but in that moment, Emma felt the intensity of purpose surround her like a cloak. She was no longer a young woman intimidated by the corporate machine. She was a challenger armed with insights, intent on catalyzing change. Mark's expression softened, his initial skepticism giving way to intrigue. "This is promising," he said. "But let's discuss your ability to execute under pressure. What if the pilot falters, or the community response is lukewarm?" Emma paused, weighing the implications. Failure is a fundamental part of innovation. If the pilot doesn't meet expectations, I'll analyze the feedback and adapt our approach. Learning from failure provides the blueprint for improvement, shaping us into something stronger. As she spoke, a pulse of adrenaline coursed through her. Emma had felt the surge of possibility, the kind of empowerment she had only dreamed about. This was not merely about proving herself to Mark and others in the room, it was about setting a precedent for what she envisioned, yet, inside a corner of her mind, a whisper nagged persistently, what if she placed too much faith in her convictions? What if the ground beneath her dreams crumbled? Mark's gaze weighed heavily on her, his critical disposition now replaced with earnest evaluation. "Then let us see if you can execute this strategy under scrutiny. I sense momentum here, but I need to know you're ready for the unpredictable territory ahead." Emma felt the challenge resonate within her. It was daunting yet exhilarating, a reflection of her own growth and grit. The upcoming hurdles would demand everything she had cultivated thus far: her resilience, authenticity, and adaptability. Yet, as anticipation simmered in the room, she couldn't shake the nagging thought that this might be only the beginning. What awaited her on the other side of these challenges? The tension sharpened as Mark leaned back. "Meet with your pilot group. Test your methods. Report back to me with results. Your journey doesn't stop here, it transforms." Emma nodded, accepting the challenge but feeling the weight of uncertainty press in. This was her moment to either flourish or falter. The stakes were high, but so was the potential for transformation. Fear mingled with daring excitement as she prepared to plunge into the unknown. What lay ahead could either cement her place in this field or lead her to the darkest corners of self-doubt. She gathered her resolve, the path ahead illuminated by a tumultuous mix of desire and trepidation. The next steps had to matter. She had to confront not just the external obstacles but the uncharted areas of her own capabilities. As she exited the conference room, a sense of urgency propelled her. She knew the opportunity to redefine her narrative had arrived. But was she truly ready for the deeper challenges running parallel to her professional aspirations? Emma didn't have the answers yet, but she was determined to find them. The afternoon sun filtered through the frost-coated windows as Emma made her way to the community center for the first meeting with her pilot group. Each step was layered with determination, a palpable response to the challenge Mark had laid at her feet. Would this group embrace her vision or shatter her fragile aspirations before they could even take root? Entering the room, she found a handful of families seated at a table, their expressions an uneasy blend of curiosity and skepticism. She recognized the weight of their experiences and feared not living up to their expectations. Their lives were riddled with challenges, and here she was, presenting a beacon of hope. She took a deep breath, reminding herself of her mission. "Thank you all for coming today," Emma began, her voice steady but wavered slightly as she searched their faces for signs of receptivity. "I'm here to share a vision that I believe can help families like yours find better solutions to everyday struggles. But first, I want to hear your stories." A young mother named Mia spoke first, her voice trembling as she recounted sleepless nights juggling work and family commitments. Emma leaned in, fully present and absorbing every word. This was her opportunity to connect with their realities, to understand what the initiative could mean for them. As Mia spoke, Emma felt each personal revelation solidify her resolve. After each family member shared their tales, Emma felt a wave of vulnerability wash over her. They didn't just need a solution, they needed empathy, understanding, and someone who genuinely cared. Emma decided to share her own journey, her struggles, and the moments of doubt she faced along the way. "I've had my share of setbacks," she confessed, "and I still question whether I'm enough sometimes. But it's those experiences that solidified my commitment to helping families like yours." The room grew quiet, the air heavy with contemplation. As Emma continued, something shifted. Her words were not just narrating her past but resonating as a collective human experience. There was a realization, a shared moment of recognition that they were all part of this journey. "Now, I'd like to collaborate with you," she said, her enthusiasm rising. "I want us to test this initiative together. Your input will shape this. It can only succeed with your voices at the forefront." Skepticism lingered in Mia's eyes, prompting Emma to grapple with the next hurdle. "What happens if this doesn't work?" Mia asked, her tone challenging but wrapped in concern. "We've tried so many things before. What will make this different?" Emma's heart raced. Was she prepared for the inevitable rejections and failures? "I understand," she answered, her voice steadying. "This pilot will be a work in progress, a start guided by your feedback. If something fails, we'll learn from it. Each attempt brings us closer to finding effective solutions." The conversation continued, energetic exchanges highlighting the raw concerns and hopes within the room. Emma's approach of personalized dialogue was forging a bond. The families began to envision options together, and with each idea shared, her confidence grew, yet, as enthusiasm surged, a contradictory swirl of doubt crept back in. Was she genuinely equipped to handle their vulnerabilities? Beyond the professional facade lay an array of uncertainties. Navigating these emotions was a delicate balance, one she hadn't yet mastered. When the meeting drew to a close, the families expressed gratitude, suggesting specific pathways they could explore together. Emma felt a surge of relief mixed with anxiety. She had begun to bridge the gap, but how would this translate into hard data and results? As she stepped into the bustling street, the weight of the world felt both oppressive and liberating. Emma had ignited a thread of hope, yet the upcoming weeks loomed large. She needed to report back to Mark with tangible outcomes, but there were unknowns lurking, ready to test her resolve. Emma's phone vibrated in her pocket, pulling her from her thoughts. It was a message from Mark. "Looking forward to your update. Don't let the pressure break you." His words stirred a sensation within her, the pressure of expectation but also the exhilaration of purpose. What if she could not only meet expectations but exceed them? Emma realized she stood on the precipice of transformation, her own, and that of the family she aimed to empower. How would she harness this energy into a narrative that could command investor attention? She halted, consumed by a mixture of determination and resolve, suddenly aware that the real challenge was shaping not just the initiative but redefining her internal landscape. The next phase wasn't merely about statistics and results, it was about confronting her own identity in this process of change. As the evening sky cast colors of dusk, Emma clenched her fists, ready to embrace the challenges ahead. The spark of her newfound mission crackled dimly in her chest, igniting a sense of purpose that was undeniably hers to forge. But beneath this newfound clarity loomed uncertainty. What personal truths would she uncover in the pursuit of her vision? Emma understood one thing: to succeed, she had to confront the hardest truths lying beneath her ambition. Emma sat alone at her small dining table, a steaming cup of herbal tea cradled between her hands. The quiet of her apartment felt both comforting and isolating, amplifying the internal cacophony of her thoughts. She glanced at the calendar on the wall, the days looming until her next meeting with Mark, and felt the weight of anticipation mixed with dread. How would she present her findings and the family's insights effectively? What if her proposals fell flat? Determined to pull herself out of her spiraling doubts, she grabbed her laptop and opened a blank document labeled Pilot Program Summary. This would be her canvas, a space where thoughts could transform into structured plans. The families had shared vulnerabilities and suggestions she needed to incorporate. Equally important was her own growth trajectory, one that remained nebulous but essential. It started with Mia's story, the sleepless nights, the constant struggle, and Emma realized her own experience in chasing professional dreams mirrored those parental challenges in many ways. Her past with anxiety, the nerve-wracking interviews, and the countless setbacks transformed into a source of strength. As she typed, ideas began to flow, strategies grounded in empathy, not just metrics. Yet, there was still a nagging voice, a sharp pang of self-doubt echoing in the back of her mind. What do you think you're doing? Who do you think you are? The questions gnawed at her as she pushed through the initial drafts. She paused, the cursor blinking expectantly, and confronted the voice. You're not just doing this for you, she reminded herself. You're creating something of substance that could change lives. The realization reignited her passion she needed to embody the very resilience she wished to promote. The next morning, Emma opted for a change of scenery, heading to a local cafe known for its ambience. The clinking of cups and the low murmur of conversation set a backdrop that propelled her focus. Amid steaming lattes and the aroma of fresh pastries, she drafted a new section titled Empowerment Framework. She envisioned workshops, community gatherings, and check-in systems, mixing qualitative feedback with proactive solutions. As she sat typing away, a familiar face entered her peripheral vision, the Millionaire CEO Mark. Emma's heart raced. Their previous conversations had been a mix of mentorship and unsupportive sarcasm. It felt as though he could sniff out her insecurities, the air heavy with tension from their complex dynamic. Mark sauntered to the counter, and Emma sifted through her notes, taking deep breaths to ground herself. She decided to follow her urge and confront her unease head-on. Words felt like a shield against his critical gaze. Striding towards him, she introduced herself, her voice unwavering despite her trepidation. Mark, she said, summoning her determination. I'd like to share some insights on my pilot program. He turned, eyebrows raised, curiosity piqued, but it was that familiar smugness lingering around him that made her question if she'd made a wise decision. I didn't think you'd actually go through with it. Most people talk, few deliver, he remarked, a smirk playing at the corners of his mouth. Repressing the urge to retreat, she took a step closer. You underestimate the power of community feedback. I believe this could lead to tangible solutions for families and ultimately, better metrics for investors. For a second, her confidence cracked, but then she pressed on, detailing her framework and how it included direct input from families rather than imposing solutions upon them. Mark listened, betrayed by occasional nods, but his features remained inscrutable. And what makes you think any of this will work? He challenged, sounding more like a tease than an inquisitor. Emma felt a surge of determination. Because I am committed to listening, learning, and adapting. Because I believe we could truly empower them. Instead of the expected derisive dismissal, he simply laughed, a hint of respect evident in the sound, but leaving her feeling unsettled. Interesting, Emma. But remember, when you're back with results, make sure it's not just a nice story. Numbers matter in this business, he replied smoothly, before turning away, leaving her with jolts of irritation and renewed purpose. Back at the cafe, she scribbled notes furiously, the encounter igniting a fire within her. She didn't need his validation to steward her initiative. She had the support of the families, and that was valuable, but as she returned to her laptop, unease crept back in. Despite the day's triumphs, self-sabotaging thoughts lingered. What if she had overstepped? What if her focus on empathy clouded practicality? Emma stared at the blinking cursor again, tension surging. Suddenly, everything felt more precarious than ever. Before she could dive deeper, her phone rang. It was Mark again, this time requesting her to meet. We need to discuss your deliverables and perhaps your approach, he stated cryptically, with her heart racing. Emma couldn't shake the feeling. Was this moment an opportunity or a reckoning? Emma sat on the edge of a plush armchair in the cafe, her mind swirling with thoughts as she awaited Mark. The ambient noise faded into the background as her anxiety took center stage. Each tick of the clock felt like a countdown to an inevitable confrontation where she would either defend her vision or crumble under his scrutiny. Thankfully, she had spent the last few hours revisiting her notes, reminding herself of her purpose. The families deserved a voice that was authentically represented. When Mark finally appeared, he exuded an air of confidence that was both intimidating and invigorating. As he settled across from her, Emma took a breath, letting the resolve wash over her. This wasn't merely an encounter with an influential CEO, it was a chance to sharpen her ideas and present them in a way that resonated deeply. Let us hear what you've put together, then, he began, straightening his posture, seemingly eager for a performance rather than a discussion. Emma nodded, flipping through her notes with purpose. I've created a detailed proposal for the pilot program that includes input from families, both their struggles and potential solutions. It's built around empowerment rather than directives. As she spoke, she noticed the way his eyebrows furrowed slightly. Was it disbelief or genuine interest? Encouraged, she continued, detailing her empowerment framework, explaining the workshops, feedback loops, and how these insights could translate into real metrics that investors would find compelling. His expression remained guarded, making her second-guess her approach. Yet, as she outlined the potential impacts, she realized it was vital to connect the personal stories she had gathered with the statistical data he desired. Mia's experience encapsulates decimated hopes, but it also highlights resilience. If we address the emotional barriers first, we'll see substantial changes to the quantifiable outcomes, Emma declared, her voice firm. Mark leaned back, folding his arms as if contemplating her words. That sounds idealistic for this industry. We operate on hard numbers, not narratives. His tone, while challenging, bore a hint of intrigue. Emma seized this small victory, pushing against the doubts swirling within. But what if the narratives can illuminate those numbers? At the end of the day, our goal isn't just to achieve metrics, it's about enriching lives. His gaze seemed to penetrate her, unraveling her defenses. And if those lives don't translate into profits? Emma hesitated, the question forcing her to confront her values. Feeling the weight of the family's stories in her heart, she shifted gears. Then we risk missing the point of our work. It's not just about profit. In the long run, sustained success stems from creating value. Trust me, the financials will follow if we start from a place of genuine understanding. Mark's expression softened, perhaps he was beginning to grasp her vision. I must admit, you have a unique perspective on this. But you still need to back it up. His admission sparked a sense of boldness in Emma, igniting something further. This was not just about proving herself to him, she was validating her convictions. If I can gather testimonials and data that show how our approaches affect families on a human level, I believe it will resonate with the investors. Leaning forward, Mark seemed contemplative. You might just be onto something, yet I still need to see undeniable outcomes. Numbers matter. The conversation shifted into strategy, and Emma relished the ground she had gained. The doubt still flickered at the edges of her mind, but something had changed. She was no longer just defending her ideas, she was articulating a vision rooted in possibility. As their meeting came to an end, Mark extended a hand. I'm impressed. If you can deliver results that align with investor expectations, perhaps we can collaborate more tightly. Emma grasped his hand tightly, filled with a mixture of relief and excitement. Thank you, Mark. I'll ensure my findings speak for themselves. As she walked away, adrenaline coursing through her, Emma felt a profound shift within. The arena around her was no longer merely daunting, she was becoming a player in it. And then, as she neared the cafe exit, her phone buzzed with a new message. Opening it, her breath caught. It was from one of the families she had interviewed, a desperate request for support that hinted at an unraveling crisis. Was she prepared to dive deeper into their needs? The opportunity was right in front of her, but at what cost? With a storm of thoughts swirling, Emma knew this was merely the beginning. She was about to face challenges deeper than she had ever anticipated. The short walk to her car felt longer than usual, the weight of the family's message now dominating her thoughts. What if she failed them? The urgency in their request gnawed at her resolve, and she could almost feel their desperation curling around her ankles, urging her to press forward. Yet, with newfound determination from her meeting with Mark, she was beginning to understand a vital truth. Her path was not solely about metrics or ideas, it was about real lives, real stories, and real solutions. Once seated in her car, she stared at the message again, considering her next move. Could she juggle this unexpected challenge while refining her proposal? As she turned the ignition, she mentally mapped out a plan. Those personal narratives intertwined with hard evidence could be her strongest asset, but she needed to act quickly. Emma drove through the familiar streets, the residential neighborhoods now a tapestry of faces she intended to know intimately. It was time to reconnect with the families, gather insights that could weave their stories into her approach compellingly. Each house had a story, and each family a song of struggle and resolve. She envisioned hers like a mosaic, filled with unique colors and patterns, telling a story that would resonate beyond the corporate shades of gray. Arriving at her first stop, she was met with a wave of emotions, fear mingled with excitement. Gathering her materials in the back seat, she mentally rehearsed her introduction. These families were not merely clients, they were her allies, partners in a mission she felt was much bigger than herself. Knocking on the door, she was greeted by Mia, the young girl whose experience had provided the heart of her last pitch. The girl's once bright demeanor dimmed, and her mother appeared in the doorway, worry etched across her face. "Emma. Thank goodness you're here," the mother breathed, leading Emma inside where the atmosphere was thick with tension. "Things have escalated. We're facing eviction and don't know where to turn." Emma felt the ground shift beneath her, the veiled struggles now painted vividly before her. This was not just another statistic, this was a life being changed. Her heart raced, torn between the urgency of their situation and the necessity of gathering data that could highlight these challenges more broadly. "Tell me everything," Emma urged, her voice steady. "I want to understand what you need most right now." Mia's mother detailed their troubles, punctuated by fragments of their stories and the emotional toll it took on their small family. Emma took notes, processing not just the words, but the feelings woven between them. Anguish, frustration, and a hopeful thread that suggested resilience. It became clear that the answers lay in the emotional narratives that could back her framework, those same stories that Mark had labeled idealistic. But the risk was daunting. Would these families be willing to share their raw experiences, knowing the stakes? As Emma left that household, she was struck by a realization. She would have to earn their trust in ways she hadn't fully considered before. This work demanded vulnerability from everyone involved. And so, she resolved to be transparent in return, opening up about her journey, her mission, and even her doubts. Back in her car, memoirs of other families echoed in her mind. Each moment felt surreal as she envisioned piecing together their experiences, not merely to support her proposal, but to forge an unbreakable bond between her intentions and their realities. Suddenly, her phone buzzed with another alert. The urgency in her heart quickened as she opened the message. What awaited her now? An opportunity that might pivot everything she was striving for? Emma's mind raced with possibilities. The need for collaboration surged within her. The moment approached when she would have to engage not only with families but with the investors as well. It would require more than just numbers. It was time to weave empathy into her strategy. But had she underestimated the risks of pulling these families into the spotlight? Emma felt a sense of foreboding creep in, shivering through her thoughts. Would standing in the intersection of these two worlds leave scars she couldn't mend? The line between advocacy and vulnerability was thin, and she was about to tread into something deeply transformative. With uncertainty shadowing her clarity, she questioned whether she could truly uphold the trust she had built. Was she ready to face the implications of bearing their truths to a world quite often indifferent? Emma's grip tightened around the steering wheel. The choices before her glittered with potential, peril, and the promise of profound discovery. And then, with her next move looming over her like a question mark, she felt herself teeter at the edge of what might become her most significant decision yet. Emma stood at the threshold of a new chapter, her determination carrying her into the conference room where Mark awaited her with a blend of curiosity and expectation. The weeks of gathering stories from families had woven a tapestry of emotions and actionable insights, the culmination of which she now bore proudly. Each interaction with the families had deepened her resolve, turning her once nervous heart into a steady drumbeat of purpose. As she unfolded her meticulously prepared presentation, the words flowed freely, rooted in empathy, supported by hard data, and anchored in real-life experiences that had become more than mere narratives. She captured observations from their struggles, painting vivid imagery of resilience laid bare against the backdrop of societal indifference. Their lives are not mere statistics, they're testament to the innovation we can drive together, Emma articulated, her voice steady as she looked around the room. Mark listened intently, his critical gaze now transformed into a lens of engagement, absorbing her passion with every syllable. Your feedback has fostered a revolutionary framework, Emma continued, gesturing towards the visuals illuminating the preliminary results. By incorporating family experiences, we've identified tactical pathways that resonate with their daily realities. Our focus isn't only on altering metrics, it's about transforming lives, and the numbers will follow. She observed Mark, his expression shifting from skepticism to interest as he absorbed the stories behind the data. The room pulsed with energy this time. It was palpable and electric, a stark contrast to the boardrooms where she had previously felt dwarfed by corporate giants. Convincing everyone of the trade-offs between profit and impact isn't trivial, Mark interjected thoughtfully, but I can see you've built a compelling narrative here. It sticks. Every word from him sparked a surge of energy within Emma. This was confirmation of her growth, of how far she had come since that fateful gala night. She had positioned herself not as an outsider but as a credible innovator who articulated the voice of the unheard. Emma broadened her focus to illustrate how the family's involvement could generate commitment from investors eager for worthwhile ventures. By demonstrating both the qualitative and quantitative impacts of our project, we are setting a precedent for accountability that the investors can measure. Their stories will serve as the bedrock for our strategy. Mark nodded appreciatively, appreciating the shift towards accountability intertwined with compassion. And what's your plan for getting stakeholders on board? Emma felt electric with purpose. I intend to create a collaborative network of families willing to share their insights, validating our approach as authentic and dynamic. Their narratives not only promote relatability but anchor us in measurable success. As she concluded her pitch, applause resonated from a few members around the table, reflecting a newfound respect that reverberated through the air and settled in her chest. Mark stood, signaling a powerful shift. Emma, you've done something remarkable here. This isn't merely about presenting ideas, you've uncovered a movement. Let's take this further. Elated but grounded, Emma realized she stood at the cusp of a monumental transition. This was validation, not merely from Mark but from herself. She was no longer the timid waitress, lost among the elite. She was an architect of change, possessing a clear vision that potential investors would recognize. Days later, as she prepared to step onto a larger stage at a significant investor forum, the weight of her ambitions resonated through her core. She had transformed not just in the eyes of Mark or her peers but within herself. The narratives she had harvested from her interactions sparkled vividly in her mind. Those stories had become the heartbeat of her vision, the very essence of her being. When she spoke at the event, Emma exuded a palpable confidence. The years of struggle, mother's fears, and children's aspirations materialized in every sentence. The applause that followed was not just acknowledgement, it was a collective embrace, a statement of shared belief in what she was creating. The transformation was not just of her professional life but of her personal growth. Emma emerged as a recognized leader, someone with the tenacity and vision to change the landscape for struggling families. Mark's respect had elevated her, but ultimately, it was her determination that crafted clarity and purpose around her achievements. Standing amid the cheers, Emma acknowledged not only her journey but the countless families who had dared to share their vulnerabilities. They were no longer just subjects in her project, they were allies, co-creators in a legacy that would resonate generations beyond her own. She had achieved what she set out to do, to honor her grandfather's legacy, to empower those who had felt powerless, and to reshape narratives with authenticity and innovation. And now, as she prepared to step into a future where her voice could echo loudly, she knew this was just the beginning, the dawn of something truly remarkable. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Your support matters. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Don't wait even one more second. True fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting channels like this.